Clothes fade, seams loosen, colors soften, just like we do. But instead of resisting change, Wabi-sabi invites us to see beauty in it. For many of us, our closets are not just places where fabric hangs, they are quiet museums of our lives. That coat you bought in your 40s still sits on its hanger, even though you haven't worn it in 20 years. The dress from your child's graduation still takes up space, even though the moment lives forever in your heart, not in the fibers. And every time you open your closet, you're reminded of who you were, not who you are right now. That's where the tension begins. Does your closet still reflect your life now, or is it holding onto a version of you that has already passed? This question matters, because closets are not just about clothes. They carry the weight of memory, the whisper of expectations, and sometimes even the quiet judgment of time. But Wabi-sabi offers a way to see differently, to honor what has been, while making space for what is. Imagine opening your closet and seeing not piles of fabric tied to old stories, but a small, intentional collection that breathes with you today. Imagine feeling peace, instead of guilt, when you choose what to wear. That shift isn't about loss, it's about discovering joy again. And before we go further, if this already speaks to you, don't just tap that hype button. It helps seniors' voices rise to the top, where they belong. You get 3 hypes each week, and every single one pushes videos like this higher so more seniors can discover a lighter way of living. Japan America Mistral is 68, a retired choir director who has lived her entire life in Ohio, yet carries within her a dual identity that shows up every time she opens her closet door. To her, clothing has never been just fabric. It has been her way of marking moments, expressing culture, and weaving memory into something tangible. One side of her wardrobe speaks of heritage and travel, elegant kimonos she once collected at Japanese cultural festivals, each stitched with patterns that reminded her of fleeting beauty and the dignity of age. The other side is unmistakably American, flowing choir gowns from decades of directing performances, each robe a symbol of leadership and belonging, colored by voices that once rose together in harmony. Hanging beside them are coats thick enough for Ohio winters, some still bearing the faint scent of cold December air. When she looks at these garments, she feels both pride and heaviness. Pride because each piece reminds her of a season when she gave her whole heart, whether guiding young singers through Handel's Messiah or walking through lantern-lit Japanese streets in celebration. But the heaviness comes because every garment also carries years that can never be repeated. Her closet, instead of serving her daily life, has become an archive of who she used to be. And while those memories are precious, they now press down on her spirit, crowding out the space she longs for today. Japan America's struggle is one many seniors quietly share, holding on to clothes not because they need them, but because they fear what letting go might mean. Yet Wabi-sabi whispers another truth. These garments are not meant to imprison her, they are meant to honor the impermanence of life and help her release with gratitude. Her story is a bridge between two worlds, Japanese grace and American resilience, but what she seeks now is not more fabric, it is peace. Rule 1. The memory stitch. For Japan America Mistral, memory is woven into every seam of her closet. She holds onto a kimono from her very first cultural exchange trip, its fabric now softer with age, the patterns slightly faded but still alive with meaning. It represents a time when she was younger, curious, and stepping into a culture that spoke to her soul with its reverence for beauty in impermanence. Hanging next to it is a choir robe from her very first performance as a director, still carrying the faint trace of incense from the church where voices once rose in unison. These garments are more than clothing, they are containers of emotion, time capsules that transport her back to moments when her heart beat faster with excitement and pride. Yet as she stands before them now, she feels the paradox. The kimono has not been worn in decades. The robe no longer fits the body she lives in today. And still, they occupy space as if they have a duty to remain forever. Wabi-sabi teaches that nothing is meant to be permanent, not fabric, not roles, not even the bodies we live in. The beauty lies in recognizing that the moment has already given its gift. Keeping the entire garment for eternity doesn't preserve the past, it only clutters the present. So Japan America learns the practice of the memory stitch, a simple yet profound act of distilling memory into fragments. Instead of keeping the entire kimono, she keeps the sash that once cinched it, folding it neatly into a small box where she can hold it in her hands whenever she wishes to remember. Instead of preserving the whole robe, she saves a single button, polished smooth by years of touch. These fragments take up little space, but they carry the same story. They free her closet without erasing the meaning of her life. For seniors, this truth is powerful. We often cling to garments as proof that moments were real, fearing that letting go means forgetting. But the opposite is true. Releasing the excess allows memory to breathe. A photograph, a swatch of fabric, or a single thread can hold more tenderness than a closet packed with clothing never worn. The memory stitch doesn't ask us to abandon our past, it invites us to honor it with gentleness and simplicity. And in doing so, it creates room for the present, space to live, not just to remember. By practicing the memory stitch, Japan America begins to feel lighter. She realizes that memories are not lost when garments leave her closet. They remain stitched into her heart, into the stories she tells, and into the legacy she is quietly shaping. The kimono sash, the robe's button, these are enough. They whisper, instead of weigh down. And in that whisper, she hears the true spirit of Wabi-sabi. Beauty not in holding everything forever, but in cherishing the impermanence of life. Rule 2. The weight of unworn fabric. In Japan America Mistral's closet, there is a row of dresses that once defined her sense of elegance. A silk gown she wore to a concert 20 years ago, a fitted dress that once flattered her youthful figure, skirts that were chosen in a time when her waist was narrower, her steps lighter. These garments no longer slide onto her body with ease, but they remain on their hangers like silent witnesses. Every time she brushes past them, she feels the weight of their quiet judgment. They do not simply take up space, they speak to her in whispers. You used to fit here. You used to look different. You used to be younger. This is the cruel trick of unworn fabric. Clothing that should protect and comfort instead becomes a mirror of loss. For many seniors, closets become shrines to bodies that no longer exist, holding garments that punish instead of serve. But Wabi-sabi offers a gentler way of seeing. Its truth is that imperfection is not failure. Change is not decline. Aging is not the opposite of beauty, it is beauty transformed. Just as a teacup with a crack gains character, just as wood darkens with time and becomes more dignified, the body too tells its story through change. Japan America begins to see this. She realizes the dresses no longer fit not because she has failed, but because she has lived. Every laugh, every holiday meal, every winter survived in Ohio, every year conducting her choir, they all shape the body she has now. Her current body is not a betrayal of the old, it is a continuation of her journey. And clothing that refuses to serve this new reality has no place in her present. With courage, she takes the dresses one by one and thanks them before releasing them. The silk gown that once made her feel radiant still carries that glow in her memory, even if it no longer drapes her shoulders. The fitted dress that once turned heads does not need to stay imprisoned in her closet to validate her youth. Her youth was real, and it remains hers in photographs, in stories, and in her heart. By letting go, she makes peace with the body she has today, a body that deserves garments that embrace it rather than shame it. This is the heart of Wabi-sabi, to accept imperfection not as something to be hidden, but as something to be honored. The fraying edges of fabric and the softening of skin are not signs of ruin but of time's artistry. When seniors release clothes that no longer fit, they are not surrendering beauty, they are affirming that beauty has simply changed shape. For Japan America, the weight of unworn fabric no longer haunts her closet. By removing it, she removes the silent judgment and replaces it with compassion. Her wardrobe begins to reflect not the ghost of her past body but the grace of her present one. She no longer dresses for who she was decades ago, she dresses for who she is now, and in doing so, she discovers a new freedom, the freedom to live in a body without apology. Rule 3. The Seasonal Illusion. Japan America Mistral's closet has an entire section dedicated to coats. Long wool overcoats, heavy parkas lined with fur, rainproof jackets, and even a vintage trench she has not worn in decades. Altogether, 6 coats hang in perfect alignment, waiting for winters that never arrive the way they once did. Decades ago, Ohio's winters were fierce. She remembers scraping ice from her car windows in the early morning, wrapping herself in layers before walking to choir practice, feeling the sting of January air on her cheeks. Back then, having multiple coats was practical, even necessary. But the seasons have shifted. Winters are now milder, and the heavy coats rarely leave their hangers. They remain just in case, shadows of a past climate and a past rhythm of life. This is the heart of the seasonal illusion, the belief that we must hold on to clothing for a future that may never come. Seniors often fall into this quiet trap, saving wardrobes for someday trips, when I travel again, or when the weather turns like it used to. But Wabi-sabi calls us to live in the season we are in now, not in imagined ones. To cling to old needs is to deny the truth of the present moment. A closet that holds onto outdated seasons ends up holding onto outdated versions of ourselves. Japan America realizes that by keeping 6 coats for winters that rarely arrive, she is cluttering her space with fear of scarcity rather than trust in the rhythm of her current life. The extra coats do not protect her, they only remind her of seasons that no longer exist. True peace, Wabi-sabi teaches, comes from aligning with the now. Dressing for the life she actually lives means keeping the 1 or 2 coats that serve today's winters and letting go of the rest. The act of releasing the surplus coats feels at first like surrender, but it transforms into liberation. She no longer peers into her closet and feels the silent weight of garments waiting for just in case. Instead, she feels clarity, her wardrobe matches her life. There is no pretending, no stockpiling for a season that has passed. For seniors everywhere, this lesson carries deeper meaning. Holding on to seasonal illusions often reflects a resistance to acknowledging change, not just in weather, but in health, lifestyle, or age. Many keep swimsuits for vacations they may never take again, or formal dresses for events that no longer come. But by accepting the present season honestly, we create space for peace. We begin to see that our value is not tied to what we might do someday, but to how fully we inhabit today. When Japan America folds away the extra coats and donates them, she feels a lightness she did not expect. Instead of mourning the loss of harsh winters, she embraces the gentleness of her current climate. Instead of seeing her closet as preparation for imaginary futures, she sees it as a reflection of the life she is actually living now. The seasonal illusion dissolves, and with it comes the quiet truth of Wabi-sabi. There is beauty in aligning with the present season, even when it is softer, slower, or different from what came before. Rule 4. The Wabi-sabi palette. When Japan America Mistral stands in front of her closet, one truth becomes clear: colors tell stories. In her earlier years, she often followed the pulse of fast fashion, buying garments in bold reds, glittering silvers, and sharp blacks because that was what the magazines promised would make her look modern and current. But those pieces now hang in the shadows of her wardrobe, out of step with the life she lives at 68. They shout when she longs for calm. They demand attention when her spirit seeks peace. It is in this quiet moment of reflection that she discovers the Wabi-sabi palette, a way of choosing colors that do not fight time but flow with it. The Wabi-sabi truth is simple: natural beauty lives in simplicity, and fading is not the end of beauty but its deepening. Instead of chasing the fleeting vibrancy of passing trends, she begins to see the quiet power of colors that age gracefully. Indigo that softens with every wash, moss green that whispers of forests, earth tones that echo the soil of her garden, soft grays that remind her of morning skies. These are not the colors that scream for attention, they are the ones that rest gently on the eyes and bring harmony to her spirit. They do not compete with her aging skin but embrace it, reflecting light in ways that soften rather than highlight. This discovery feels almost like coming home. When she drapes an indigo shawl over her shoulders, she sees how its fading threads mirror her own hair as it silvered over time, not a loss, but a transition into another kind of beauty. When she slips into a moss green cardigan, she feels grounded, reminded of walks through the park where fallen leaves were never seen as flaws, but as part of the cycle of seasons. Even a well-worn beige cotton blouse speaks to her with dignity, proving that fabric, like people, carries history in its lines and softness. For seniors, this palette offers both freedom and relief. It releases them from the pressure to dress as if they are chasing youth. It affirms that elegance doesn't come from loudness but from resonance. By choosing clothes in hues that blend with the natural world, they step into a timelessness that no trend can erase. Wabi-sabi colors remind us that as fabric fades, it gains depth. As we age, we too gain depth. Both body and cloth are transformed by time, and both become more authentic when stripped of artificial gloss. Japan America decides to let go of the garments that clash with her present self, the metallic blouse she bought on impulse, the neon scarf that never truly suited her. She donates them, releasing the weight of false promises, and instead curates a wardrobe rooted in calm tones. For the first time, her closet feels like an extension of her heart, not a catalogue of what fashion once demanded. The Wabi-sabi palette becomes more than color, it becomes philosophy. It reminds her every day that beauty is not in resisting age but in embracing it, not in clinging to the loudness of trends but in finding harmony in what is quiet, steady, and enduring. And as she steps out into the world in her indigo shawl or moss green cardigan, she realizes something profound. She does not need her clothes to shout for her. She carries her own presence, and the palette simply allows it to shine with natural grace. Rule 5. The silence of empty hangers. For as long as Japan America Mistral can remember, her closet was always crammed full. Dresses pressed tightly against coats, scarves tangled with blouses, hangers groaning under the weight of too many garments competing for space. She thought a full closet was a sign of stability, of preparedness, of being put together. But in truth, it felt suffocating. Each time she slid the door open, she felt overwhelmed by the noise of fabric, colors clashing, sleeves falling over one another, textures competing for her touch. It was not a sanctuary but a storm. One afternoon, after letting go of the clothes that no longer fit and the ones that no longer matched her life, she tried something she had never done before. She left hangers empty on purpose. She spread her remaining clothes apart, leaving space between each garment. For the first time in her life, she could see individual pieces hanging in peace, not crammed together in silent chaos. She paused, looked at the rows of quiet space, and whispered aloud, almost without realizing it, "My closet can finally breathe." This moment revealed a powerful Wabi-sabi truth. Emptiness is not loss. Emptiness is presence. Just as the pause between musical notes creates the melody, just as the open spaces in a Japanese garden give shape to the stones and trees, the empty hangers gave shape to her wardrobe. The gaps were not reminders of what she no longer had, but invitations to feel the beauty of what remained. For seniors, this is a deeply emotional shift. Many were raised to believe that more is always better, more clothes, more choices, more safety in keeping. But Wabi-sabi turns that idea upside down. It teaches that less is not a void, less is space. It is room for clarity, for calm, for peace of mind. When closets are packed to the brim, they shout. When closets are given breathing room, they soothe. Japan America began to notice how much lighter she felt when getting dressed. No longer did she fight through clutter to find what she needed. Each piece had its own presence, its own dignity. Opening her closet became an act of calm instead of stress. And slowly, she realized that what she once feared, empty hangers, had become her greatest source of relief. This is the invitation Wabi-sabi offers to every senior, to see that emptiness does not take away from life, it gives life back to you. Empty hangers are not waiting to be filled again, they are reminders that what you have is enough. They symbolize that you no longer need to cling to everything, that you have chosen peace over accumulation. For Japan America, the silence of empty hangers was a revelation. It reminded her that freedom often looks like space. That joy often comes in pauses. And that the most beautiful parts of life are not always in what we keep, but in what we allow to fall away. Her closet now feels less like storage and more like a sanctuary, where every garment has room to breathe, and so does she. Rule 6. The Legacy Fold. 4 years, Japan America Mistral held onto garments not for herself, but for her children. She imagined one day they would open her closet after she was gone and treasure the things she could not bear to part with. The polyester suits she wore to community concerts, the choir robes that once swept across church aisles, even a velvet jacket from the 1970s that had not seen daylight in decades. She believed these clothes would carry her story forward, proof that she had lived fully, led choirs, and embraced her culture. But one quiet conversation with her daughter changed everything. When asked if she wanted any of the old robes or coats, her daughter hesitated, smiled softly, and said, "Mom, I want your stories, not your closets." That moment struck her like a bell. The truth of Wabi-sabi revealed itself. Everything is transient. Fabric thins, colors fade, styles change, and what once felt precious to one generation often feels like a burden to the next. Legacy is not measured in polyester or mothballed gowns. Legacy lives in what is carried forward with meaning. Her children did not want to inherit piles of clothing that did not fit their lives. They wanted the essence of her, the lessons, the laughter, the memories stitched invisibly into time. So Japan America began what she called the legacy fold. Instead of leaving her children an overwhelming closet, she curated a capsule of just 5 pieces, each chosen with intention. She folded them carefully, one by one, not because of their monetary value but because of the story they carried. A kimono sash that spoke of her connection to Japanese festivals. The choir robe from her first performance as director, a symbol of her leadership. A scarf her husband had gifted her on a snowy night, still carrying warmth beyond fabric. A cardigan she wore at family gatherings where joy overflowed. And a soft blouse she always reached for in moments of comfort. 5 pieces, folded with love, each one carrying the true rhythm of her life. The legacy fold was more than decluttering, it was liberation. She no longer needed to save mountains of clothes that her children would quietly donate after she was gone. Instead, she gave them something purposeful, a collection that reflected her soul instead of her storage. By letting go, she not only cleared her space but also lifted the burden from her family's future. For seniors, this practice is both emotional and practical. It asks, what story do you truly want to leave behind? Is it the overwhelm of boxes and closets stuffed with unused fabric, or is it a small, intentional capsule that tells your story with clarity? Wabi-sabi reminds us that nothing lasts forever, not fabric, not even us. But what we choose to pass down can still carry beauty, if we do so with purpose. When Japan America placed her 5 folded garments into a cedar box, she felt a peace she had not known before. Her children would not inherit clutter, they would inherit meaning. The rest she released with gratitude. In that act, she discovered that legacy is not about quantity, but essence. Not about how much you leave behind, but how deeply what you leave behind speaks. This is the quiet grace of the legacy fold. Rule 7. The Joy Test. By the time Japan America Mistral reached the final stage of her wardrobe transformation, her closet already looked different, lighter, calmer, and truer to her current life. But one question still lingered. How could she be absolutely certain that what remained truly belonged to her present self, and not just to habit or hesitation? That is when she embraced the final Wabi-sabi practice, the Joy Test. Unlike rules rooted in memory or legacy, this one demanded action, not just reflection. It asked her to live with her clothes and let experience, not emotion, reveal the truth. For one full month, she made a promise to herself. She would wear every single item she had kept. Not once, not half-heartedly, but fully, to church, to dinner with friends, on walks through the park, even while reading at home. Each garment had to prove its place in her life as it is now, not as it once was. And as the days unfolded, she began to see her wardrobe with new eyes. Some pieces instantly passed the test. Her moss green cardigan felt like a gentle hug every time she slipped it on, carrying the warmth of familiarity and ease. A soft indigo shawl draped around her shoulders made her feel connected to both her Japanese roots and her American life, blending cultures in the quietest way. These clothes were not just worn, they were lived in, aligned perfectly with the woman she had become. But others told a different story. A blouse she had insisted on keeping because it was too nice to give away made her itch with discomfort the moment she wore it. A skirt she thought she might reach for again felt stiff and foreign, as if it belonged to someone else entirely. Even a pair of shoes, polished and elegant, pinched her feet in ways that reminded her of sacrifices she no longer wanted to make for appearances. Wearing them revealed what sentimentality had hidden. They did not bring her joy, only unease. This is where Wabi-sabi's wisdom shines. Joy is not found in abundance, but in harmony with the present moment. A closet overflowing with someday pieces is heavy. A wardrobe filled with garments that fit both body and soul today is light. By wearing every piece, Japan America learned that her closet did not need to be a museum or a warehouse of potential, it needed to be a companion to her daily life. Anything that disrupted that harmony was thanked and released. For seniors, the joy test is both practical and deeply emotional. It strips away the illusions that keep clothes hanging unused for years. It reminds us that if a garment doesn't bring comfort, peace, or joy now, it likely never will again. And it affirms that life after 60 is too precious to spend entangled in fabric that no longer fits our bodies, lifestyles, or spirits. At the end of the month, Japan America stood before her closet with a newfound sense of clarity. What remained was not just clothing but a reflection of her truest self, garments that carried comfort, dignity, and quiet joy. She realized that the joy test was not about fabric at all. It was about alignment. Alignment between the woman she is today and the life she chooses to live. And in that alignment, she discovered what Wabi-sabi had been teaching her all along. Beauty is not in holding on, but in living fully with what belongs here and now. By the end of her journey, Japan America Mistral's closet no longer resembled the crowded archive it once was. The shelves once stacked with layers of forgotten garments had been cleared. The rods once sagging under decades of weight now carried only 27 meaningful pieces. Each item remaining had a reason, a memory, or a purpose tied to her present life. No longer did she feel as though she was walking into a museum of who she used to be. Instead, her closet became a quiet sanctuary, a mirror of who she is today. When she opened the doors, she no longer felt guilt, pressure, or longing. She felt peace. She felt lightness. She felt freedom. Wabi-sabi had taught her something profound. Less isn't emptiness. Less is space for life to sing again. Those empty hangers she once feared were not signs of lack, but symbols of clarity. They gave room for air to move, for colors to rest beside each other, for silence to exist without being rushed to fill. Her closet had become a metaphor for her own life. Just as she released garments that no longer served her, she was learning to release expectations, regrets, and burdens that had lingered for years. The 27 pieces were not just clothes. They were affirmations of comfort, of presence, of joy aligned with her current season of life. For seniors everywhere, this transformation carries a universal truth. Closets are often heavy because they hold more than fabric. They hold unspoken fears, fear of losing the past, fear of not having enough, fear of facing the present honestly. But when you declutter with gratitude, when you embrace Wabi-sabi's wisdom of impermanence, those fears begin to dissolve. You discover that you do not need 50 coats or endless blouses to prove your life was full. Your life is full because you lived it, and the space you create today allows new life to enter. Japan America now feels joy every time she chooses what to wear. Instead of battling through clutter, she gently lifts a garment that feels right for her body and her spirit. Her mornings begin with calm instead of stress. Her evenings end with gratitude instead of regret. She has proven to herself that a smaller wardrobe is not a restriction but an expansion of peace, clarity, and harmony. Before you go, here's how you can hype this video and support this channel. Step 1. On your YouTube app, scroll down and swipe left on the comment preview carousel until you see the hype button. Step 2. Tap hype. Step 3. Choose how many points you want to give. Remember, smaller creators get a bigger bonus boost. Step 4. Confirm, and you're done. You get 3 free hypes every week, and every hype pushes this video higher so more seniors can discover it. And if you hype often, you can even earn a Hype Star badge showing you're one of this channel's top supporters. Your closet is not just fabric. It is your story. And like every story, it deserves space to breathe. When you create that space, you don't lose yourself, you find yourself again. That is the gift of Wabi-sabi, and that is the gift of choosing less, so your life can sing more clearly than ever before.